Good morning, folks. Good Saturday morning to you. Just going to run down the college football slate for today on FanDuel and Draftkings. Got a 12-game main slate, and we'll start with Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Total on this game is 50 and 11.5. A&M's favored. Let's see. Looking at wide receivers here on the Texas A or the Mississippi State side. Don't really want to touch any of these guys. Guidry looks like he has a good rapport with Schrader. Him and Dedrick Thomas. Mitchell hasn't done much of anything the last couple weeks, so of course he's going to probably catch 10 passes and 3 touchdowns this game. So, but yeah, A&M's secondary is bad. I just don't know if Mississippi State can take advantage of that. Let's look at the Texas A&M receivers here. This game is going to be a really slow-paced game. A&M likes to slow it down, run the football, take all the 35 seconds of the game clock and snap the ball. So it's really a shitty game for DFS. So I'm going to try to avoid it if I can. There's a couple pieces that I like, but nothing great. Jamon Osborne has been pretty solid, and Mississippi State's been giving up a lot to wide receivers. So Osborne, Davis, Rogers gets the end zone targets here. Aeneas Smith also there as well. But yeah, and there's a bunch of guys there, so just play whoever you like the best. It's kind of tough to choose there. For Texas A&M running backs, it's been Isaiah Spiller, 31% of the carries. That's after not really playing the first couple weeks since Corbin went out with his injury. I love him today. 31 total, and they should be running the football. That would be the smart thing to do. Mississippi State's given up a lot on the ground. These D-line yards, 2.62. Don't stuff the run at all. So could definitely see them running the football really well today. They ran the football well last week against Mississippi. So quarterbacks, it's just Schrader for me. I don't want to touch Mond. He's been terrible this year. His accuracy is horrible, and I just want to stick there. Running backs for Mississippi State, I don't really want to touch. I think they're going to be playing from behind there, so just give me the A&M running back Spiller, and that's about it. Okay, Miami and Pittsburgh is the next one. It's not a extremely high total. It's actually really a low total. Team total for Miami is 18.75, and Miami's quarterback N'Kosi Perry is playing with a separated shoulder, so they're going to be playing it safe there. They're going to have to run the football because their line isn't very good at pass blocking at all. So you want to look for guys that are going to get targets around the line of scrimmage. Be Osborne. He kind of is the deep threat there, so I kind of want to avoid him. Jeff Thomas is out. He's probably their best receiver. So I really want to look at Brevin Jordan here, 5,200. He's a tight end, so I like him a ton. D. Wiggins got some targets last game, and he's only 3,400. If you need a cheap play, he's really talented. Mark Pope should also play a ton. He's 3,800. So I would target those cheap Miami wide receivers. Harley also, he's the slot guy. He should get a ton over the middle. So I like those guys. For Pittsburgh, of course, it's the usual two guys. They kind of spread it out a little bit more last week. It's French and Mack, of course, 63 and 6,400. They kind of threw a little bit more to Matthews, which was out of character for them. And Shockey Jacques Louis. He's only 3,200, and they threw to him quite a bit as well. So I don't hate that. Let's see. Probably be better if I pulled the spreadsheet up there. All right, there we go. Right. On the running back end of things, it's A.J. Davis and Vincent Davis. A.J. Davis has looked good this year, and I don't think. Let me look at the D-line stats here. Miami. Like this. That works too. Miami D-line. Okay. So they are third. They're 8th in stuff rate, which is pretty damn good. And 8th in line yards. So I don't really want to touch the Pitt running backs here. It's kind of been a share between Davis and Davis there too. So I don't really want to touch that. Miami is interesting. There's reports that DJ Dallas is out. He got hurt last week. So if he is, I love Cameron Harris at 4,800. Pittsburgh isn't really great against the run, so you could see them having a decent game there. Stuff rate isn't very good either, and he should get most of the carries today. So I like that a lot. On the quarterback end, I could see maybe a chance of playing Pickett, but I don't love that either. So I'm kind of skipping over those guys. Oklahoma and Kansas State is the next one. Let's see. Wide receiver wise, it's just Lamb, Rambo, and Hazelwood. Hazelwood has been disappointing, but he's only a freshman, and supposedly they're one of their best receivers. Calcaterra is still out, so yeah, that's pretty much it there. Let's move on to Kansas State. All right, it's Kansas State wide receivers. Last week, they used Joaquin Gill as a deep threat. He's only 3,500, so he could have a big game today for cheap. Maybe they throw one over the top. So could definitely see that. Maybe showing, but I don't love their target numbers at all. Running back wise, if for some reason you're not playing Jalen Hurts, probably need to play Kennedy Brooks, because it's either going to be Hurts or Brooks scoring the points there. I love Hurts personally, so I won't be playing much of Brooks. So I love that. Hurts is probably the lock for me. I'm just gonna stuff him in my lineups. So I won't have much of the Oklahoma running back situation. For Kansas State, I don't want any of their running backs either. They're not very good. I don't want their quarterback either. So I'll just move on to the next one. Wisconsin and Ohio State. It's one of the premier games on the slate. However, it's two of the best defenses on the slate. Wisconsin lost last week against Illinois, so they'll be looking for a bounce back game. They're probably pretty pissed. They lost to a far inferior team. So I like Wisconsin to kind of keep it close. Their defense is really good, but they've played a pretty terrible schedule. Along with Ohio State, they haven't played a great schedule as well. But Vegas does have their team total at 32.5. There may be some weather in this game as well, so probably need to watch out for that. I think maybe the running backs and quarterback for Ohio State may be in play here. Maybe the guys that get receptions around the line of scrimmage, like a KJ Hill, and that's pretty much it. Maybe maybe a little bit of Olave. I may have Wisconsin. I just don't trust Cone to throw the football to these receivers. Cephas would be the only guy I'd really look at. Maybe Ferguson a little bit because he's the tight end, but I'm mainly skipping over that. Now the running back situation, both rush defenses are top 5 in the country, so I will skip over those guys as well. Possibly can look at J.K. Dobbins here, but the stuff rate's 33%. Just doesn't look great. But OSU showed that they can run the football on anybody, and this is about the closest thing to a spread you can get in the Big Ten. So it's a little bit different look for Wisconsin as well. Quarterback, you can play Justin Fields. I don't hate it, but there is a couple other guys in that range like Purdy or Ellinger. So could play either of those guys over Fields. Auburn and LSU is the next game. I think LSU has too much offense for Auburn, but we shall see. I don't think that Auburn can keep up with what LSU will be doing here. So the wide receiver situation for LSU, Terrace Marshall's supposedly back. He's 6,600, and he is a very talented wide receiver. So he could have a big game here for a little bit less than what the top 2 receivers are priced. Chase didn't really have a good game until Marshall got hurt, and then Chase came in and kind of went off last couple weeks. Jefferson's also good here if making a stack. Seth Williams at 6K. I kind of like Schwartz a little bit more today. They kind of threw the football a little bit more to him last week after he got the brace off his hand. So Thaddeus Moss is also interesting. Randy Moss's kid, playing tight end, 4,300. Kind of been thrown to him a little bit more. Not as interesting this week with Marshall back, but if you need a $4,300 player, I don't hate it. Running back wise, Auburn is a mess. They've got 4 different running backs. They did run Martin a lot more last week, which kind of expected him to be a lead back. He's a little bit smaller, but he is really quick. LSU has kind of struggled against the run a little bit. I think back to that Vanderbilt game where the Vanderbilt running back ran all over him, but the production's kind of too spread out for me. I don't want to take that chance and one of these other guys goes off. But for GPPs, I don't hate it if you're making quite a few lineups. For LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is interesting, but they've shown that they love to throw the football, so that's probably what they'll do. Joe Burrow would be the only quarterback I'd play for this game. I don't want to play Nix really. He can go off though. For some reason, they're not able to run the football. Let's see. All right, next is Arizona and Stanford. This is an interesting game because there's some injuries that could change this whole thing. On the Stanford side, their quarterback Costello could be back, so that could be interesting for cheap. On the Arizona wide receiver side, production's so spread out, it's like roulette. Castile looks really good, especially if Gunnell plays a lot more. They've had good connection the last couple weeks. I like him. He's built like a running back, but playing wide receiver. So they throw it short to him, and he can turn it upfield. Stanford has been giving up quite a bit to spread teams. They lost to UCF. They lost last week. I forgot who they played. UCLA. So they could be interesting for sure. Let's see. All right, let's look at Stanford's wide receivers. Okay. Yeah, so it looks like Parkinson has been dominating targets. Weddington also up there. I think he threw to Weddington quite a bit last week. If not Costello, West. If West is in, Weddington's interesting, but don't know. If Costello's in, I like Wilson a lot. He seems to throw to him quite a bit, and Fehoko as well. 4,200 is too cheap for him. All right, and at running back, Cam Scarlett's interesting for Stanford. They have some bad injuries on the offensive line, so it kind of scares me a little bit. But he's 5,700, so he's not super expensive, and he gets 60% of the carries. Arizona's running back situation is interesting. If J.J. Taylor doesn't play, could see Tilford and maybe Brightwell get some more carries. Tilford's interesting, 4,400, but I would love to play Taylor if he's in, just because I think that Stanford has issues stopping spread teams, so I think he can have a big game. Also Tate, if he's in, he's pretty cheap as well. He struggled last week against UCLA, so he's 6,300. I don't hate that, but he could be sharing snaps with Gunnell as well. All right, next game, Syracuse and Florida State. This game has some shootout possibilities for sure. For Syracuse on the wide receiver side, it's Tristan Jackson, 6,900. I like other wide receivers in that range, but on NGPPs, he's interesting. Taj Harris got a lot of run last week, as did Nakeem Johnson. Sean Riley just catches balls around the line of scrimmage if you need just a cheap guy that's going to get you 10 points or something. But Florida State's bad on defense, 49 points per game to wide receivers. So they should have a pretty good little game there. Florida State. Let's see. Okay. So Florida State's wide receiver situation is fun now because they've had a couple of guys be ruled out due to injury. Ontario Wilson's out, as well as Keyshawn Helton, and so we should see most of the targets go to Tamarian Terry against a bad pass defense of Syracuse. So if not playing Cam Akers, I think Terry is essential, as he's going to get tons of targets, and Syracuse defense isn't very good at all. DJ Matthews is interesting here, 12.5% of the targets. That should go up, as well as Trayshawn Harrison as well. Those three would be the three I'd look at. Maybe Keith Gavin gets some, but I guess we'll see there. All right, on the running back side, we have Cam Akers, of course. Dude's just an absolute stud. So I like him quite a bit, and he gets passes as well. So he's game script proof there. And Mo Neal for Syracuse is interesting, but there's other other running backs in that range that I like a little bit more. So I'm probably going to stay with Cam Akers there. Quarterback, Blackman's interesting, as he should be able to throw all over this Syracuse defense. If not playing Akers, I'd go there. For quarterback, for Syracuse, it's DeVito. I don't love him. He throws a lot of interceptions, and I'd want to avoid. Oklahoma State and Iowa State is next. Let's see. Okay, for Oklahoma State, wide receiver, it's all about Tylan Wallace. 38% of the targets. Stoner's interesting at 4,900. That's about it for Oklahoma State. They should be playing from behind, so you could see some more of these other guys get targets. McRae's came on lately as well, so I don't hate that. Iowa State, I'm playing a lot of Breece Hall, so I won't have a ton of their wide receiver situation, but Petway has been coming on lately. Kohler has been huge, and they are both very cheap, just because the targets are kind of spread out. But Kohler usually gets his no matter what. So I think I might go there. 4,800, as we saw last week, he kind of broke the slate at his salary. So I like that. Let's see, running backs. Yeah, Breece Hall is probably one of my favorite running backs today. He looked really great last week, and Oklahoma State got ran on up and down the field against Baylor last week. So, and then Chuba Hubbard is interesting. He'll probably have lower ownership this week just because there's other cheaper running backs like Hall. So 8,300, I don't hate paying up for that. Iowa State's rush defense has been pretty darn good. So, I could see fading him, but it's rough. It's just a rough fade every week just because he gets, 60% of the carries, and he's just he can score from wherever on the field. So, all right. And then the quarterbacks, I like Purdy a lot. He's probably my favorite QB in that range, and I'll probably have some of him as well. All right, the next game is Texas and TCU. I think this game blows out probably. It's going to be a crazy game. Jalen Reagor is my core of the day just because he's way too cheap, and I think they're able to throw the football with Duggan and him, and it's interesting. Him and Tay Barber should get the most targets here. I love Tay Barber at 4K. He's just too cheap. They also have a guy named Michael. Let me see. I have him in the sheet. Hold on. Michael Barkley. He's only 3K, and he's been coming on lately. Doesn't have any stats yet, but he should play a lot more this week. And anybody with a pulse is really good against the Texas secondary right now. It pains me to say that, but so there's still a question mark on whether Eagles is going to play today. I think he's interesting at 5,300 if for some reason he's in. Duvernay is always a good play at 7K, and Colin Johnson is elite at 5,600 today. So thing to keep in mind is that TCU has one of the best rush defenses in the nation, so they should have to throw the football a lot today, unless Ellinger can run the ball a bit. All right, now running back wise, I don't really love it. Anderson and Alana Lua have been splitting carries, and I kind of want to avoid that. But I guess if picking one, I'd pick the cheaper of the two, just because he gets targets as well too, 10% of the team's targets, and that's about it. I don't really want much of Ingram or Johnson. Ingram looked good last week, but you just never know. Both quarterbacks are in play here. I have both of them in my lineups, Ellinger and Duggan, so don't skip over those two guys. Duggan is too cheap. He's in my main lineup right now. So moving on to the next one, Maryland and Minnesota. There's some good cheap plays here, especially at running back for Minnesota. Tyler Johnson's my favorite wide receiver from this game, with a high total, and Maryland gives up a ton to wide receivers. Johnson's just too good and gets too many targets near the goal line. So him and Bateman just sometimes never know. It's just a roulette there. Demas is probably my favorite wide receiver from Maryland. With Josh Jackson back, though, I just don't know. He's not a really good quarterback, so I don't love that play today. For Minnesota, on the ground, it's kind of been a two-way split the last couple weeks. It's been Rodney Smith and Mohamed Ibrahim splitting the carries. I like Smith a lot here. If playing cash, maybe play both of them together. So for Maryland, Anthony McFarland is back at 6,800. I don't love that. Just because Minnesota's been decent on the ground. Javon Leake should also get some carries here too. So I don't really want to use those two guys. Josh Jackson is back for Maryland, like I said. I don't really want to play him, but they should be playing from behind. And if you want to play that angle, I don't hate it. For Minnesota, their quarterback is blanking on his name, Tanner Morgan. He's 6,300. It's interesting if you think they're going to have to win the game by throwing it. I think they're going to run the football down Maryland's throat here. So that's where my mind is. Penn State and Michigan State. Let's just run over that real quick because I hate that game. Darryl Stewart would be the wide receiver I'd look at on Michigan State. Hamler would be the wide receiver I'd look at on Penn State just because he's from Michigan. And if you like narratives, that's the place to go. Running back wise, I hate all of them. I don't want to play anything. And quarterbacks are terrible. So let's skip over that one. Duke and who are they playing? North Carolina. Wide receivers. So there's questions if Diami Brown is playing today. Daz Newsome is in and should have a huge game. Duke and North Carolina both give up big points to wide receivers. So I like him, Newsome, quite a bit. If Brown is in, I like him too. You can make a nice little stack of this game if for some reason you think it blows out. Calhoun's interesting for Duke. It's only 5,200 and plays most of the snaps. Corrales has been coming on 5,400, but I don't love that. There's other wide receivers in that range today I like more. Running backs, I think Deion Jackson's interesting today. He's kind of been splitting with Durant a little bit, but I think he gets most of the carries, and he's just a good solid back. North Carolina is not great against running backs, so 5,500, maybe he gets to that 20 point range today. But Durant's interesting too, as he gets a lot of targets as well. They love to throw their running back, so I don't hate taking a chance there at all. North Carolina, let's look at their running situation the last couple weeks here. Did I pass it? Yeah, I did. Okay. So, yeah, it looks like they split. Looks like, two ways with Antonio Williams getting 10%. So they went Carter, Williams, and looks like it's been like that the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, I don't hate it, but I'm not going to be moving things around so I could play those guys. They should be able to run the football on Duke a little bit, but I'll probably avoid that. Quarterbacks, I guess that the Duke quarterback's interesting as he has a little bit of rushing upside, but kind of avoiding the rest of it. But yeah, that's the DraftKings slate there. Let me run over some FanDuel specific plays that I like. Gabe Davis for UCF is interesting. I have him cored on FanDuel just because I like him a lot. Should be able to throw the football against Temple, and he's 9,900. there. I just love locking him in. Rager's only 7,200 over there, so he's kind of a lock for me too. Parchment for Kansas is interesting, as well as Trey Nixon. The Virginia wide receivers, Dubois and Joe Reed, I think they're locks, along with T. Higgins and Justin Ross. They're both very good plays. The Alabama wide receivers I don't really love today, just because I think that Bama will want to run the football today, just because Tua's out and they can. It's Arkansas, so they should be able to run the football quite a bit. If looking for somebody, maybe look at Judy or Smith. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it wide receiver wise. I love the Virginia wide receivers. They're too cheap in Dubois and Reed. And the Clemson wide receivers are still too cheap. Clemson should be able to run the football today, but as we've seen, that Ross or Higgins can take a deep ball and get there pretty quick. For running backs, it's Akers for me there. I love Harris because he's 6,500, and you can do whatever you want if you stick him in your lineup. Killins is interesting for UCF just because McCray's out. So he should have a big game. Brian Robinson Jr. For Alabama, 7,100, should have a big game as well. Etienne is going to be top notch this game. Etienne and Harris. So I like those guys. Quarterback wise, Jed Duffy is 8,800 over there, and he's in my main lineup right now. He's just too cheap. Carter Stanley's interesting at 8,600 against Texas Tech. I like that game a lot, actually. Kansas and Texas Tech on FanDuel. If you can stuff that game and get some plays out of it with Parchment and Puka Williams and Duffy and Carter Stanley, that could be fun, because I doubt a lot of people will play that just because of the unknown names. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All the plays are up. Just let me know if you have any questions in the Discord, and I will get back with you. Thanks.